Howdy, Mr. Pete here. Welcome back to the shop, and this is tips number 1007. Please watch the two previous videos because otherwise you will not understand the context of what I'm doing here, and I'll put those names on the screen right now. And I'm continuing to work on the beautiful little Atlas commutator undercutter. I know you all need one, and I've been waiting for this video with bated breath. And if you did watch the previous ones, you will know that I rewired the little Bodine motor and remanufactured and machined and designed this new arbor which was bent in shipping. So now we'll move on to the next stage here, and let me show you what we will do in this video. As you know, in shipping the arbor was bent, and that's why I made a new one, which you see right here, and this handle crank was broken, as you can see. So what I'm going to do in this video is, well, two things. We're going to clean up these two armature chucks real well, make them look almost new, and we'll start with the actual unit itself. The motor is off of it. Actually, it's in quite good shape except for the handle here, and it really doesn't need painting because I do not have the correct color anyway, so this will just get a real nice cleanup. I am going to take it apart so I can clean these guide rods, which aren't real bad, but I just want to polish them a little bit on the lathes. So let's take this apart, and I hope you enjoy the video, and leave a comment, please. There it is. It only took a couple minutes, so let's get started with cleaning up. By the way, this is a left-hand thread here if you did not already know that. Well, I'll put the screw in the thinner where it can soak a while, and the other small pieces. And in the meantime, I'm going to go over to the lathe and just polish these up with some 220 abrasive cloth, and that won't be much effort at all. I don't think I'll even show that. Well, I lied to you twice. I am going to show a little bit of it, and I'm using 180 paper. Boy, did the guide rods clean up nice. Look like they're brand new. And you know, my wife now locks up her toothbrush, so I had to go next door and borrow Henry's. So I'll clean up these parts and the screw and be right back. I won't show any more of that. It's kind of boring. Well, that only took 10 or 15 minutes, and I didn't even have to bother my wife, so she should be pretty happy. The casting's cleaned up nice. The paint is pretty darn good original condition, and I love that color, and it's not something you can buy locally. And it will match the Atlas, but you know, I repainted the Craftsman gray. I don't really like it. But this color looks a lot more greenish in the videos, I noticed, than what it does in real life. Reassembly can commence. I almost forgot to tell you, I do like to run a reamer through the holes to clean them up. Make sure you back out the set screws if you do that. They are hardened. I'm just about done. A new wing nut and washer down there, new round head bolts right there, and a brand new key. Well, what's the matter with the old key, says you? Well, you saw it fly on the floor. I don't even bend down anymore to try to find something like that. I'll never find it. So I'll just put a new one in, and that's why you have a complete selection of all of the various hardware that you might need in your life to try to eliminate some of the anger and frustration. Maybe I didn't mention it, but the key goes right in the shaft right here to keep the hand wheel from turning. Now the whole reason I'm doing this refurbishing here, is because of the broken ball crank, and I told you in the last one that I just happened to have a spare. I mean, talk about providence, but it was something I bought at Arnfest in a box of stuff. But let me tell you something about these hand wheels before I go ahead and install it. This is an Atlas milling attachment for the 12-inch lathe. You've seen me use it over the years. I do not have one for the 6-inch, but notice that it uses the same crank handle as what I have in my hand, and I wonder if the smaller one for the 6-inch does. I don't know because I've never actually handled one. Let me show you something else. Now I'm over in my studio with the two 6-inch machines. Notice that this wheel is the same as this wheel and the same as this wheel, and possibly the wheel was used on other machinery too, the shapers, I don't know what all. If you do know, put it down in the comments. And you know what they call that? Yeah, that's called parts bin engineering. It makes good sense to use the same part in as many different places as you can if you're a large company. And you know who was a genius at that was Lee Iacocca. Can you say Mustang? And lastly, I will use these 4 screws to fasten the motor itself back on to the casting, just like that. And my more astute observers will have noticed that I goofed up. What did I goof up? This entire cord should have been routed through this hole. I cannot do that because the cord already has a plug on it. So what will I do? Well, I drilled and tapped the hole there, and I'll be using a little wire holder on the bottom. I hope it doesn't look too bad, but I don't feel like cutting the plug off and then putting a new one on later on. Okay, there's the strain reliever. I really need a smaller one, but that's what I have in stock, and I think it'll do for the demonstration, and you will never see it anyway. And there it is, and if I dare say so myself, it looks pretty darn good, doesn't it? Alright, that's done. Let's set it aside, and the other half of this video will be devoted to talking about and cleaning up the 2 armature chucks. Alright, I'm going to work on this one first, and you can see there's quite a bit of rust on the bottom side of this. Not too much on this one. So I'm just going to clean this up mechanically, that is, just with wire brush and emery cloth. I need to clean the hole real well for the arbor that I'm going to put in there, but I do not want to use evaporust on this, and I'll tell you why. This is the one you might have seen in an older video, and it was pretty rusty, and I put it into evaporust for a couple days, and that's what it looks like. I don't like the looks at all. And I have noticed that you get a different finish on whatever you're working on if it's high carbon steel or tool steel than you do if it was just mild steel. So obviously it would clean up, but this is something I'm going to either throw away or take to Arnfest. In review, the brass-jawed tailstock chuck has a number 1 Morse taper. See how skinny it is? Where the other one that fits into the headstock has a number 2. Now you saw this in the, I think it was the last video. I had this in stock. It's a number 3 Jacobs taper here and a number 2 Morse taper here, and this had a tang on it, so I removed the tang, which was no easy job, I might add, and now this is And the tang interfered with it going far enough into the headstock spindle. That's why I took it off. But this is brand new. It looks real good. But before I put it in the hole for good, I want to clean that real well. And I'll do that, probably I won't show you that. I'm going to put that in the lathe chuck and just take a little bit of this and, you know, and clean it up. This is kind of a dangerous operation. I'm always thinking that if you do something like this while it's spinning, you know, is it going to twist your finger off? Don't take any chances. The other thing I wanted to say is I really don't want solutions like evaporust to get inside of the chuck. You know, that can't be good at all. In order to clean out this little taper, I have chucked up a piece of 1/2-inch stock that I can hold in the collet. And I don't believe I'll show you that, but that will allow me to clean this under power. Well, it's 11 minutes later, and you'll have to admit, that looks pretty darn good, doesn't it? And I want to reiterate something that I said in the last one, and I know I repeat myself sometimes, and there's two reasons for that. One is because I'm never mind. And the other is because not everyone watches every video. But it did clean up real well, and remember, it came in that kit. And I discovered something in the last video that I had never seen before, that this is an unusual chuck in that it's called the number 75A armature chuck. So it's not a drill chuck. It opens wider than than this one, let's say. But it does not close down all the way. I think it closes down to, oh, perhaps 1/4. So it's not meant for drilling. Let's put the arbor in. I cleaned up the taper hole, as you know, on the lathe, and then I cleaned it very well with a brake cleaner, and I cleaned this because this was new. There was oil on it. So notice that I backed the jaws off, in it goes, and a judicious tap of a lead hammer. Actually 2 taps, it's done. I'm not getting my hopes up, and I hope you don't get your hopes up either, because this isn't going to clean up real well like this one did. There's just too much rust on it, but let's give it a try. I'll be right back. It's 30 seconds later, and look at what a great job I did on that. All the rust is gone, and look at how shiny the arbor is. Just kidding. That's my backup. Okay, this is done, and it cleaned up a lot better than I would have thought, except for where the real rust was. You know, it's kind of rough in there, but does not affect its usefulness. Strictly cosmetic. So the 2 chucks are done and ready to use. This is a bit of a related matter, but eventually we'll talk more about it probably in the next video. But looking at these 2 commutators, large and small, these are just examples of the fact that the commutator copper bars differ in their distance apart, or the thickness of the mica. So it's thinner right here than it is on this little commutator. And therein is the reason why we need different thickness cutters. So these cutters are very tiny little things, but the 2 that you're looking at are different thicknesses, one quite thin and one quite thick. They both have 1/8 inch holes in them, but notice that the one on the right is about 40 thousandths thick, and the thinner one only about 15 thousandths thick. Okay, this is the original bent arbor, and remember that's a left-hand screw or left-hand thread, whereas the one I made is a 540 right-hand thread, and the reason for a left-hand thread is that so that it will self-tighten if the screw gets a little loose rather than come loose. So this may come back and haunt me, but the reason I did that is because I do not have a left-hand 540 tap. Well, there it is, mounted on the Atlas 6-inch lathe, ready to go to work. Pretty nice. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Well, I sincerely hope you enjoyed this video on the rebuilding of the MICA undercutter and the restoration of the two chucks, and they're all ready to go to work. And there might be a video on me undercutting I should say, a commutator in the future if anybody watches this type of video. So tell your friends all about this and make sure you continue to watch my channel. Please leave a comment, tell me what you think of the projects and where you live and a few other details like that. I sure do appreciate it. I do read all of the comments. I cannot answer all of them, but I do answer a good number of them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.